So I finished season 4 of Drive to Survive. Megan, I know you did too. Can
Mhm.
you describe it in 3 words or less?
Uh, I don't know if I can describe it on the spot in 3 words or less, but I feel like you have 3 words or less to describe it in.
Absolutely, I can. And those 3 words are Lewis was robbed. All right. Welcome back to episode 4 of Break Check, guys. So we just had our third episode go out where we went over the rules and regulations. That actually went out a week late. For those who don't know, I had a bit of a emergency procedure done on my ear. So I wasn't able to edit. I was pretty beat up and under the weather all week. I'm feeling a lot better. Still only have the one AirPod in though. I can't put anything in my right ear yet, but we'll get there. Feeling a lot better. Excited to do this episode. Um, we just went go-karting yesterday. That was
Mhm.
really fun. We'll talk a little bit about that, maybe towards the end. But yeah, Megan, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, for sure. So we're not doing a word of the week this week just because this whole episode will essentially be going over some of the basics in Formula One. So just to kick it off, if you are in America and you want to start watching the sport, the races start this weekend. Very exciting in Bahrain. You can either watch it on ESPN2, and it covers it through Sky Sports. So if you have a Sky Sports subscription, you can watch it through there as well. And otherwise, you can watch it through ESPN on cable or any sort of platform like YouTube TV and stuff like that.
And if you are, a diehard long time F1 fan, please bear with us this episode. So,
Mhm.
this is going to be very basic stuff. Most of the feedback we've gotten so far from our episode, which most of our listeners, starting out are still our friends and family who do
Mhm.
not know anything about Formula One, is their feedback has been that the podcast is good and like it sounds great and it's well made, but they don't know what we're talking about. So with
Right.
the season starting up, we just wanted to do like a super basic rundown of what Formula One is so that anyone who is listening along to our podcast can kind of have a general idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and if you haven't already, I know we've asked this before, but if you want to subscribe to either our YouTube channel or our podcast on Spotify and Apple, that helps us out a lot, and it's a great way to know right away when the new episodes are coming out.
So what is Formula One at a basic level? It is a racing league. And now for a lot of our American listeners and friends and family, the first thing that they're going to think about is NASCAR. And
Hmm.
because that's the predominant racing league in America. However, this is very different. The cars are different. The structure is very different. It's definitely much more of like an international affair. Like it is a very big deal, like around the world, where NASCAR has its like fan base in the United States, but it just doesn't have the the kind of outreach that Formula One has just across different types of people, different walks of life, all that. So at its basis, it's a racing league. And Megan, do you want to break down like the teams and drivers and all that?
Yeah, of course. So there are 10 teams, 20 drivers total. So there's two drivers to a team. And then each team has 1 to 2 reserve drivers, just in the chance that one of the main drivers is sick or has to be out for whatever reason. The 10 teams are Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Williams, Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, and Haas.
So over the course of the season, which this year is 23 different races, there's 2 championships that are kind of competed over. There's the drivers championship, which is for the individually, the best driver. And there is the constructors championship, which is the team scores. So drivers championships, all 20 drivers are going for that team. The constructors championship, all 10 teams are going with their combined driver scores to win that. So, like for example, last year Max Verstappen from Red Bull won the drivers' championship, and it was obviously like a big deal that a lot of people have probably heard about at this point. But Mercedes still won the constructors' championship. So, not necessarily the best driver means that their team is gonna win the constructors as well. How that's decided is there's a point system. So every race, the top 10 finishers get a certain amount of points added to them. And basically, at the end of the year, whatever team has the most points wins the constructors. Whatever driver has the most points at the end of the season, they win the drivers' championship. And the breakdown of points every single race. So first place gets 25, second place gets 18, third gets 15, fourth gets 12, fifth gets 10, sixth gets 8, seventh gets 6, eighth gets 4, ninth 2, 10th 1. So after third place, the point increments just go down by 2. So obviously it's very important for teams to try and podium because that's just where the most, where the most points are. The points are also important. That doesn't mean that the 6th through 10th positions aren't important, because for smaller teams like say Haas or Williams, the difference of a couple points here and there throughout the season is like the difference of $1 million worth of funding, for the next year for their car. So all these points are important. Maybe 1st through 5th are most important to like decide championships, but 6th through 10th are equally as important and equally as like hotly fought over throughout the sport.
Yeah, you saw at the end of last season, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc were all neck and neck for points. So every single place matters. And, it could be a matter of 2 points like it was for some of them.
So I think everyone just kind of knows with racing, there's the different flags. Green flag, that means go. Yellow flag, there's some damage, so you got to slow down. And no passing or overtaking can happen while there's a yellow flag. This is generally in the case of accidents. Red flag means there's a larger issue on the track. Like if a crashed car is just on the track, you can't, like just blocking the way. That stops the race. So the drivers all have to take their cars into the pit while the issue gets resolved.
And the outcome of red flags too can have a huge impact on the race. You saw that in Abu Dhabi, where Verstappen pitted and was able to replace his tires, because when there is a red flag and you do go back to the pits, you are able to change your tires. So a lot of teams will try and take advantage of that, although it does obviously mean they might lose their place outside the track or on the track. So it can have a huge impact on the race. It's just a matter of team strategy, and that's another place that strategy kind of comes into the sport.
Yeah. Strategy is really everything. You'd think if you have the fastest car and the fastest driver, that's enough. But, getting a red flag, you losing your spots on purpose, but having fresh tires, knowing you're just going to be able to pass whoever's in front of you. We saw how it worked out. So
Yeah.
there's definitely, that is one thing to keep in mind. Not that there's no strategy in NASCAR. There is obviously, we just don't know a ton about it, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into Formula One racing. And a lot of times, like the smallest of margins are what makes the difference.
Right. And then now looking at the tires, there's different sorts of tires that are used for the track, having different durability, different grip, and there's also some tires for wet. So there's 2 different types of wet tires. There's the intermediate and the more just severe wet tires if it's downpouring. Typically, though, if it's downpouring, they're normally not on the track anyways, but they have them just on the chance. But the 3 main tires that they'll be using throughout the race are red tires, roughly the yellow tires, and the white tires. The red tires are soft. Soft helps you grip quicker. So they kind of warm up a bit faster, but because they're easier to warm up, they burn out quicker. So they're far less durable. Red tires are great in qualifying. So you can help set your fastest lap quicker and you have more chances, essentially. It doesn't take as long for you to get going. And it's also great maybe for starting out on the race if you know you're going to be pitting, doing 1 to 2 pit stops during the race. But yellow tires are the medium tires. Those are usually the most ideal. They're a little bit between the soft and the hard. So they're used for high temp tracks, which is, probably half of the races, if not more. And then there's the white tires or the hard tires. So they have less grip, but they're the most durable and beneficial when you're doing a one-stop race, as they won't wear out as quickly. So we saw Ocon last year use hard tires and do a one-stop pit stop, where everyone else was doing 2 pit stops. Helped him out quite a bit. His tires were kind of ruined a bit after, but it's not usually recommended, but you can kind of get by with the white hard tires if you do want to take advantage of a 1 pit stop. And for clarification too, the pit stops typically take about 20 to 30 seconds. So the benefit of them is you get fresh tires, you're able to kind of speed up a little bit quicker and maybe pass the people ahead of you. But the downside is you are likely losing position, and that could determine the overall outcome if you pit too late. And then there's maybe a red flag or a safety car. And then now instead of being, in fourth position, you're in 12th, and you might not have enough time to get back up to the original position you were in. And lastly, looking at qualifying, drivers have practice over the weekend before they start qualifying. So it's called FP or free practice. And there are 3 different types. There's FP1 and 2. So those are both 90 minutes long, and they happen on Friday after media. Media will be taking place in the morning on Fridays versus having the full day on Thursday. And then they have a final practice Saturday morning for an hour before qualifying starts shortly after. And qualifying will set the race for Sunday. Now, qualifying also works in 3 rounds. All 20 drivers will start on the track for 20 minutes to set their fastest lap. And the 5 slowest drivers after those 20 minutes are then removed from qualifying. And then shortly after, they go into Q2 or qualifying round 2. And that's another 20 minutes with the 15 remaining drivers setting their fastest lap before the next 5 slowest are removed. And then finally at Q3, qualifying 3, you have the final 10, the top 10, run their fastest lap for 20 minutes to set their place. And whatever position you finish in your respective qualifying round is where you would start typically on a Sunday, unless of course they're taking a penalty of some sorts. But just in this case, wherever you end up in qualifying, that's where you'll start. So if you don't make it into Q3 and you're in Q2 and you were 13th fastest of those 15, then you would start P13.
So since we're obviously just going over some like beginner stuff, something we wanted to talk about too was Drive to Survive, which is the docudrama about about F1 on Netflix. So this is how I got into Formula One, and it's how a lot of Americans have gotten into Formula One. So Megan and I both finished up season 4 of Drive to Survive. It's not without its issues, but I think we both just generally enjoyed it, and it is an entertaining thing. And I do think it is the easiest way for Americans to get into the sport. Megan, do you have anything you wanted to add about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first couple of seasons was great, and getting to know some of the drivers and just learn a little bit about the sport. Just kind of like the basics of who they were and, having that entertaining aspect. I think season 4 was a little bit too focused on the drama, and they missed out both on a lot of opportunities to cover other things that happened because last year was such a big year, coupled with just a little missed marks on in terms of accuracy. So like in certain races, they missed the mark on a bit. And, Claire saying that, someone, won a race or, won a sprint race and that wasn't the case, or just using audio footage for a different story to like kind of create this specific storyline. So I do have, those comments, of course, but I think overall, if you're looking to just get into the sport and learn, a little bit about what's going on or what's happened in the past, I think it's a great way to kind of enter into the sport.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily have to start at season 1. If you're looking to get into F1 this year and you just kind of want a basic lowdown of what happened last year, like Megan said, there's some inaccuracies and there's some stuff missing. There's a lot of stuff missing actually. But if you start at season 4, it's a pretty quick watch. It's 10 episodes of like 30 to 40 minutes. I think that would give you a kind of a good idea of where things stand going into this year, especially between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. That was just kind of the storyline of last year. And I think that's honestly a pretty good starting point for new F1 fans to just kind of get into the sport and go from there. Because at one point or another, that's how Megan and I started. And now we have opinions about Williams' second driver and just the most random things that you could think of. But yeah, Drive to Survive season 4 is out. We finished it. It's entertaining. We just thought that it'd be good to recommend for any new fans to really check that out.
Yeah, definitely. And the race is starting this weekend, so it's a great time to get on it.
Yeah, races start this weekend, which is why we wanted to get this episode out before then, just to kind of be a good launching point for any new F1 fans, any of our friends who want to follow along this year. I think we hit most of the basics.
Mhm.
Formula One racing league, the most technologically advanced and fastest racing league in the world. These cars are insane. They're unlike any other racing league you think you've seen in the past.
Mhm.
Trust me, it's super cool. But yeah, we went over 10 teams, 20 drivers over the course of the season. They, go for the drivers championships, constructors team championships. There's points based on how you finish each race. We went over, the flag colors, green,
Mhm.
yellow, red, all that stuff. Megan took us through qualifying. And we touched on Drive to Survive, which one thing I wanted to add for any like football fans, it is almost exactly like Hard Knocks. Like it's got that similar vibe to it where you kind of see all the stuff going on in the background.
If you guys have any questions as well, if there's something that we didn't cover or you're curious to learn more about, please reach out to us, Break Check Instagram account or Twitter account or YouTube, and just let us know if you want us to cover something else. We'll, of course, cover it in the next episode. And yeah.
Yeah, we're always more than happy to talk about Formula One. We started this podcast because we're like the only two people we know,
Yeah.
in our immediate friend groups who follow this. But yeah, like Megan said, reach out if you guys have any questions. Season starts Sunday. Megan, who do you think's winning the first race?
Who do I think's winning the first race? I would
Yes.
love to see Kevin Magnussen back on the podium. I don't know if he'll win, but I would love to see him up on top. Will we see Hamilton P1? They think that their car is not going to be competing for wins. They said that last year.
They're filthy liars.
Yeah. If it's not Carlos Sainz or Lewis Hamilton, I will be surprised.
Yeah, I think Carlos Sainz takes P1 first race of the season, but we'll see. Once again, if you guys, like what you heard, subscribe, download, comment, like all the good stuff. And we will talk to you next Monday with our first post race episode.
Woo! Can't wait.